What's the first thing that comes to mind when you see this? Perhaps another forgotten relic headed for its demise. Well, not quite so. See, that car is a BMW 507. Once owned by none other than Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. And this door, it leads straight into the world of restoration magic at the Wheel Network. In case you don't know, the Wheel Network is one of YouTube's biggest automobile channels, boasting over 550,000 subscribers and 250 million views. And if their reputation is anything to go by, Elvis BMW might just be on the road to an epic comeback. It's hard to believe that anyone would let a classic owned by Elvis get to this state. But the sad reality is that this car has been sitting idle in a dusty American barn for years. The multi-layer of dust is immediately evident to the restorer, who looks stunned. And it gets even worse when you explore the interior. The steering wheel looks seized, the instrument cluster is faded, and every single luxury that Elvis once enjoyed in this car has vanished. Unfortunately, the exterior isn't any better. The dents and corrosion at the rear were hard to miss. Also, the hardtop and bonnet covers are so damaged they've practically detached, exposing years of rust, weathering, and decay. But can it really be saved? Well, we'll find out soon, but for now, the focus is on the disassembly process. First was the door and the boot lid, which required serious effort from two men. And then the screws and bolts were sealed in a bag and labeled. Next, the restorer examined the frame, and he had this curious look on his face as he searched for hidden inscriptions on different parts of the car. The absence of the door gave the extra room to assess the damage more closely. From the faded BMW emblem on the side to the tangled mess of wiring beneath the steering wheel, this once glorious machine had become an absolute wreck. But this pro restorer was not ready to give up on it. He continued the disassembly, carefully raking out the seats, headlight, and grille. From then on, the disassembly process went into overdrive. And before I could say restoration, this abandoned BMW 507 was stripped down to its bare bones. The only thing left standing was the mainframe of the car, but even then, the restorer wasn't satisfied. He grabbed his tools and got to work, knocking down every obstacle that threatened the restoration of the frame, and mending every section that required attention. Next, his colleague joined in, and together, they unhooked the front and rear sections of the frame, leaving behind the skeleton of the car. Once that was done, the car was strapped to a hoist and dipped into a cleaning pool. The process was so surreal, it felt like a baptism. And indeed, it was because by the time the car emerged from the solution, it was reborn. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it was completely free of all blemish, but the heap of rust and corrosion that engulfed it had significantly reduced, and you could tell that something special was brewing. Next, they transported the car back to its initial position and gave it another round of washing. This was a thorough hand wash, delivered by a fully kitted restorer. The process was grueling even for this determined craftsman, but he kept up the intensity. And by the end, the car was almost unrecognizable. The improvement was glaring for everyone to see, but so were the flaws. As the camera panned across the car, it exposed all kinds of dents and damage, including some that eerily resembled bullet holes. For all the progress the restorer had made, this discovery felt like a major setback, a harsh reality check that dulled the momentum of the restoration. Thankfully, it also served as a motivation, spurring the restoration for the next stage of the project. This phase was all about precision and intensity, from grinding and welding to cutting, pounding, and even more welding. Every step was executed with care and accuracy to ensure a flawless restoration. And just when it seemed like things were slowing down, the restorer ramped up his efforts, making sure no detail was overlooked. Look what we have here! Seems like someone from the Elvis family left some mystery notes on the car. Kudos to the restorers for preserving the messages despite the heavy restorative work they've had to do. But unfortunately, there was no time to decode it because the job wasn't done yet. Next, the restorer and his colleague reattached the bonnet cover, but it didn't align properly. So they took it off, made a few adjustments up front, and when they placed it back, it fit perfectly. But just as they were about to celebrate the breakthrough, they discovered a missing piece of the frame that supports the bonnet cover. And the only way to replace it was to rebuild a new one. A daunting task popping up right in the middle of what has been an intense restoration project. This is a daunting task, especially at this stage of the project. But these gurus from the wheel network refused to back down. Instead, they began the process of building the missing part. It took a while, but with some precise measuring and cutting, plus an incredible display of metalworking and fabrication skills, they were able to successfully mold and install the part. Once that was achieved, a group of restorers went around the car, ensuring that every part was aligned and ready for another life of service. Next, we got an exclusive view of the car in its full glory. As if it wasn't stunning enough, they crowned it with the hardtop cover. But something significant was missing, and it's none other than the paint. So they rolled the car into a hauling container and set off for the painting booth. Unfortunately, we were left out of the process, but the result was very pleasing to the eyes, and the presence of the engine made it even better. Although I couldn't guess what the restorer would do next, I was sure that we were getting closer to completing the restoration of this sleek icon that once served Elvis Presley. But if this car is really going to run and shine again like it used to in the late 1950s, some critical work still needs to be done. Here's an expert restorer handcrafting a new seat for the car. His hands glide over a sheet of premium leather, measuring and cutting it with pinpoint precision. Then he lined out the components that had yet to be installed, and you know what follows next? A detailed and meticulous reassembly process that would hopefully nudge this restoration closer to the finish line. Again, the restorer decided to exclude us from the action as all final installations were done away from the camera. But as a consolation, he gave us an exclusive tour of the car. Walking from one end to the other, he showcased just how much it had transformed in such a short time. Honestly, the level of work that has been done so far is beyond words, and you can tell that these restorers are endowed with a unique talent. And I bet even Elvis would be impressed with the remarkable transformation if he were alive. Nonetheless, it is also important to emphasize that a successful restoration isn't just about aesthetics. Even more so for such a blockbuster restoration project like this one. I mean, it's not just a restoration, it's an endeavor to revive an iconic car and honor the connection it has with Elvis Presley, one of the biggest musical acts of the 20th century. But what exactly is the relationship between an American music icon like Elvis and this grand touring beauty from Germany? Well, it's a love story between man and machine, one that started in December 1958. Elvis had just enrolled for his military service at the time when he got stuck in the middle of two major love affairs. One was with his then-girlfriend Priscilla, who eventually became his wife. And the other was with this BMW 507 that is on the verge of being revived. As the restorers wrapped up work on this masterpiece, a growing crowd gathered, expecting the grand arrival of the BMW 507. Only two things can happen now. The BMW 507 can either roll in and receive a thunderous reception from the spectators who are buzzing with excitement, or the engine could refuse to start, crushing the hopes of this expectant crowd. So which will it be? As each vehicle passed by, tension spiked and anxiety filled the air. Spectators scanned every car, searching for that iconic BMW emblem. But they saw nothing. Well, that was until this fully restored BMW 507 appeared, gliding slowly and gracefully across the lawn like a royal chariot. It was such a beautiful sight to behold, and I am sure Elvis would be looking down with a bright smile on his face in appreciation for the incredible work that the craftsmen at the Wheel Network have done. Over to you now. What's your favorite part of this restoration? Leave your thoughts in the comment below and don't forget to watch our other restoration videos.